Hi there, and welcome to the Live Vybrant Podcast, where we explore how to live with energy, purpose, and intention. I'm your host, Joshua Haag, a holistic lifestyle, performance, and success coach with a background in professional sports and 2 decades of coaching experience. Each week, I sit down with experts across a multitude of fields, including wellness, finance, and personal growth, to uncover practical strategies that will help you thrive in every area of life. Let's dive in and help you live your most vibrant life. So excited to have Jason Baumsteiger on. He is the founder of the Uncommon Sense School, and this is a life skill school for young adults. We came across one another as we're both building our platform, me for Vybrant, him for the Uncommon Sense School, and we just kind of clicked and hit it off. Jason, welcome to the podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, and this is, for those listening, this is, as he tells me, other than things at the academic level, this is his first podcast. So we're going to have to take it easy on him. Nothing too hard or risque in terms of questioning, but it'll be fun. So what in the world is the Uncommon Sense School? I know, but it's for the listeners, but it's such a cool concept. Tell me about it. Tell me what it is.
Sure. So as a former professor in school, you deal with a lot of people who come to office hours. And they're struggling with whatever concepts you're trying to teach them. And what I found is that 50% of the time they were struggling with life skills more than they were struggling with the material I was trying to teach. Because their life was in disorder or disarray, essentially, they couldn't focus on what I wanted to teach them. And so when I left academia and moved on, I realized, though, that my heart was in how do we actually fix this problem? And I realized that it's really related to something we all think is common sense, that everybody should know this stuff. But it turns out that they don't, and maybe they should. And so we designed a school that was, even if it somewhat insults one's intelligence a little bit, was going to go back and actually teach this material to people to get everybody on the same page.
Okay. And what in the world would be an example of these life skills? Because I guess everyone has kind of a different standard of what they are, I guess. But from your eyes as the master professor, what are the life skills you're actually teaching us? Is this like accounting, or is it be polite? What are the life skills?
Sure. You have to, obviously you can go in a million different directions as far as what you think people should know. And so maybe I could sum it up better is when we learn to drive, there are certain rules of the road. Right? Everybody kind of learns these rules of the road. And whether it's a giant truck or a motorcycle, everybody kind of knows, hey, a light, you stop sign, you stop, right? Green, go. But we then get out into life and we assume that everybody kind of knows the same thing for life. And they don't. They don't know that, right? People are turning right and left and we're out of control. And if anybody has ever traveled internationally, you can get into an area where it's every person for themselves, just kind of. And so we wanted to dial that back and spend the time to make common sense. So I came up with 4 tenets for the school, which is health, financial literacy, money, survival, how do I prepare for the things that could go wrong in my life, and then career and leadership. And these basic things, you can learn about them sort of in your average junior high school, maybe even some college, but you don't really learn about them explicitly as far as what they relate to you and your role in society.
And now, can we dive into each one of those? It's the health makes a lot of sense. Financial literacy makes a lot of sense. Survival skills and career leadership. 2 very, I would say, unique tenets that I didn't expect you to say, truthfully. So can you give me some examples of each one?
So I'll use just little stat stuff, so apologize for nerddom.
Run it.
The United States predicts that if we had an electromagnetic pulse that killed all of our electronics, that 90% of our population would die in the first year.
It's awful.
Well, you take something like that. Now, you can blame the government and how they came across that number, but what it means is your breaks in supply chains, your breaks in communication, your breaks because of how dependent we are on everything else to survive. We don't have the basic skills. Do you know how to grow something out of the ground? Do you know how to clean it? What if your water is tainted? What do you do? Right? So I grew up in Los Angeles. Lived in the 1994 Northridge earthquake. I was 1 mile from the epicenter. Right? So it literally threw me across the room. The earthquake was so powerful. Out of bed, threw me across the room.
Whoa.
And you went from, hey, I'm supposed to go to junior college today, to everything is shut down. The world is shut down. Everything stops. You can't trust the water in your house. There's no power. Everything's broken. Everything is just disarray. People's buildings were being condemned within a day. And so all of these things that we assume will go to plan doesn't, and we have no idea how to survive. And that's what the government's basically telling us. We have no skill set. We're completely dependent upon everybody else to do it for us. And so if I'm looking at a life skill, what if I had to go out in the forest and survive? No, almost everybody's going to die. And that's
man alive. And now that's survival skill. So it's very straightforward. Grow something, start a fire, right? How to purify your own water or what water source to look for. That's a master class in and of itself. How do you boil that down to like a segment? That's a huge undertaking, just survival skills.
Right. But the beauty of it is, and probably just like your fitness stuff where you're trying to explain it, right? There's a mountain of fitness that you could explain all of it. So what do you start with? We're just going to start with the basics. That's why it's common sense. It should be basic understanding that everyone has. And yet they don't. People came to my house back in the earthquake because they had no idea what to do. We just looked like we knew what we were doing because we'd shut off our gas. We were assessing situations. People had no idea any of it. And it gave me this huge impression. It's like, well, how many other things out there are there in society that we take for granted? We take for granted because we assume. So I love the definition of assume because it's perceived truth without proof. And it comes to our minds is a way to protect ourselves from decision fatigue. We have so many decisions to make in a day that our minds kind of piece things together, and it makes us feel like that's true. But it's not, because we've never tested it. We don't know, but it feels like it is. And so people get up every day and they just assume everything's going to go to plan. And when it doesn't, they literally have no backup plan. And common sense would say that they should.
Right.
And they don't.
So now what would, like, okay, we understand survival skills and tactics. Give me some health, give me some financial literacy, and give me some career. Give me like 3 or 4, just like you did for each one. Because like my head is swimming with all the possibilities, and like I'm so curious.
Yeah, and that was the hardest part of coming up with the school was how do I cull it down to just core tenets, just basic principles, right? That's why I led with it's almost insult to your intelligence. Because to you, maybe that is really common, but we are not common. That's why Benjamin Franklin said the most uncommon part about common sense is that it's not all that common, right? We assume that everybody has the same experience as we do, and that's especially here in the United States, at least. That's not the case. We are a conglomeration of all the countries in the world now put into one spot. So to think that even my neighbor would have the same experiences and come to the same conclusions I would is just fundamentally false.
Right.
So let me see we want to talk health. So what do you think is the number one thing that's haunting most college-age students?
In today's world?
Yep, today's world.
And from our eyes, from study, or from like their opinion?
You can do either. You'll come to the same conclusion.
That there is an increasing populace of obesity, overweight.
Okay, so that's the physical side, right? So is it because they lack access to information, education?
No. Motivation?
They lack resources?
No, it's motivation. They just don't care.
Right. They don't care because one of the things that I talk about, this is a little bit of a technology now does everything for us. It comes back to the survival thing. So if you think about in an average day, how many physical things did you have to do modern day?
Like for me growing up or like today, like in general?
Like today, right now. Like what physical things do you have to do anymore that maybe 100 years ago you would have to spend the whole day doing?
Man, everything from the food that I ate to moving around the city to this right now is nothing. Talking to another person. We didn't even have to get in the same room. So it's like everything is like compared to 100 years ago, like we do nothing. And I'm physical and we do nothing.
And that's what I'm saying. But evolutionarily, we were built to be physical. And now we are the opposite. And we didn't think that that might be a problem.
And clearly it is now.
Right. Second thing, and this is the part I know you know a ton about. the caloric intake that we're having is still that of somebody who's
Hmm.
working all the time and working really hard. But most of us, I mean, the average American doesn't take 5,000 steps in a day. And then, but we're taking 4,000 calories for, you know, I mean, our resting metabolic rates are a good ones, maybe 2,500. So it's just, it's not something we're doing a lot of. And then we're consuming the calories. So even if we wanted to say, hey, this person is not intentionally trying to load up on calories, it comes back to a simple principle of they don't understand how eating and working out works.
I also think going deeper on that, speaking from the health side, people don't understand at a root like what food is, what a calorie is, what it means to eat something. And then all of a sudden they'll turn around and say, well, I tried really hard. I eat healthy and I'm not losing weight. Well, then you like grill down on them. They're so far skewed from what natural and neutral should be. They don't even understand what it would take to be normal in terms of their eating habits and things like that. So that makes a lot of sense. So
You
we
see
have
why it would be so, Josh, right? Everybody just kind of assumes that people know this, but where did they
yeah.
learn it?
And what's really funny is I consider it a specialty knowledge at this point because I've devoted skill and time to it. And okay, maybe I know more than most, but like it now, like you say, it's common sense, but it's not.
It's not.
Like I have to teach every single person I come across what a calorie is, what protein looks like basic shit. Interesting. So cool. Okay, give me more.
Okay. So the second one would be, so obviously you dedicate a lot to physical health, which is fantastic. But you and I both know that the number one hangup for physical health is mental health. And that is the big pushback that all the college students, we're at unprecedented levels of depression, unprecedented levels of anxiety. We have more people on pharmaceuticals than in all of human history, right? Because of our mental health. We strengthen our bodies sometimes, but what do we do to strengthen our minds?
Yeah.
Like, what do you physically do? So you get up and I did 50 push-ups today. What did you do the equivalent to strengthen your mind, right? And then I'm a 15-year-old boy and I'm trying to go through life and I have no idea how, I have no mental strength at all. I am literally one emotion to the next, right? Nobody's teaching me how to control my emotions, how to have mental strength or what that even means. What does it mean to have mental strength? Like if you tried to define it for me right now, I bet you'll have to think about it for a second.
I would say it's the ability to take on and deal with stress. And stress can be in any form. But that's what I would argue it as. Like that mental fortitude. Sports, I believe, used to teach it to us. Getting up for 6 a.m. practices, being out there 5 days a week in the hot sun, blah, 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 blah. And sports, you're seeing a major decline in sports. Like kids, they want to sit behind a computer screen.
That's right.
Okay.
But do you see how it's connected? Without the mental strength, we don't have the ability to have willpower. We don't have the ability to stick through the hard times, something that you've probably come across, the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is you think you have all of this knowledge, and then you start to do it and you literally fall off a cliff.
Yep. Yep.
Because you don't, it's an artificial inflated sense that you understand something. Because you don't, it's supposed to be common, and then it isn't.
So, not diverting, because I still want to know what some FinLit is in career, but diverting a little, you had talked about the motivation and that people want everything handed to them. How are you going to deal? How are you going to take steps through the fact of like, you're going after a generation that, like, truthfully might not give a shit? Like, what you're teaching as a coach, as I'm 34, so I'm a little bit older, right? I noticed I have a couple clients whose kids are like 28, 29, 26, 27. I was the last kind of generation before like the social media took hostages, right? It just pulled everybody down. So I see that huge shift from like and okay, maybe, I'm an entrepreneur. Maybe I think differently than some others. Okay, cool. But I could see a hard line in the type of person that's coming up through the school and has entered the workforce now. How do you plan to get a hold of them and to show them that this is important? Because like I value it. I see it. And we're 10 minutes in. But like you talk about the fact that there's low motivation, that hell, what happens if they don't want to change? Like that's the real.
Right. But if I could loop back to the entire thing, is that you have to get them early. You have to get them early before they know the difference between the two. Once they understand the easy path, then they're going to pick the easy path. In my world and sphere, we like to use the phrase, when given the choice between doing something and doing nothing, people always choose to do nothing, right? Something represents fear, that something could go wrong, they're worried about this or that, they have past traumas, whatever.
Yep.
They just do nothing. And that's what's happened. It's not necessarily that they won't do it, it's that they have the ability to not do it because technology lets them.
Yeah, until there's a big motivating event. So the question then is, how do you motivate them?
And so now this is super ambitious, so please don't, everybody should have a lofty goal and a dream, right? So this is my personal.
Yes, sir.
I would love to get my school to be a curriculum that occurs in the sophomore year of high school.
Amazing.
It's a class that every 15-year-old, 15, 16 takes because they're on the cusp of starting to do adult things. Learner's permits for driving, getting their first job, right? All of those are theoretically possible around 15, 16. So there needs to be a class where we're going to make them aware of all of these concepts. We're not going to force them to do it, but we're no longer going to give them the excuse of, well, I didn't know. And then that's what they hide behind. Well, I didn't know. It's like, well, now you do. So now there's an expectation.
Why would you go after that specific? So sophomore would be what? 16, 17, 15, 16-year-olds, I think you said, right? Why would you go after that specific year, age demographic versus maybe a freshman in college or versus why?
Because that's still the point. Again, if you can go look at all the stats and stuff, and this is argued in the scientific community, but that's the point when you're really starting to first develop yourself. When you're 12, you're still pretty much dependent on what your parents doing, or what your friends are doing, but you're really starting the very first who you are. And that's what we teach in the school is, what is your foundation? Like this house you're going to build that is you. The most important thing is the foundation, right? That's what's going to help you survive the storms. But most people never spend any time on the foundation. They spend all the time on the fanciness of the house and the location and the couch and the paint, right? And I need them to build a foundation first. And so we want to start them right at this first stage of when they're beginning to do that. Like a home economics class, like a woodworking class. It's like, this
Totally.
is the life skills we need to dedicate to every single student in our country, right?
I realistically, as you flesh it out, I don't think it's like you're like it's a lofty goal. The law of limiting was it the law of the lid, right? So it's an expansive mindset problem. I don't think it's as lofty as you probably think. It's just how do you get it accredited? How do you get it certified? But for those listening, and we didn't really get into your background because I was so excited to just jump into like what this all is. You were a professor for a long time. Tell us your background and whatnot, just super quick.
I have a PhD in quantitative and systems biology. And you're like, why does that have anything to do
Just
with...
casually drop that in here.
So what I did was I spent a significant amount of time in academia chasing various dreams of, I became a geneticist. I worked on fish. I worked on birds. I did all this stuff, but I taught a ton of classes over the time. And I learned a lot I jumped around to a lot of universities. So that's what I mean. I have a whole bunch of degrees. But what I'm trying to teach people is what I learned from getting those degrees, not the information I acquired at the school, right? So most people think that a PhD represents, look at all this knowledge I have about G, A, T, and C in genetics. And it's not. It's all of the things that it takes to accomplish something so hard, right? How do you get to do something so hard? And how do you explain that? How do you bounce it around? I was never the smartest kid in my school. I was never that guy. But I would outwork them. And I just kept going and exploring puzzle after puzzle. And they kept letting me go. And I was like, okay, well, I'm going to keep going. But I realized when I got up there is that there's fundamental problems in the system. And there's nobody really addressing those. There's plenty of people that come in and teach basic biology. But there's nobody to teach what's wrong with the system. And you kind of alluded to it. My fear is, how do I get in front of the right people to get them to understand that this is the missing component to all of our young adults?
So,
the rules of the...
So totally, it's obviously not equivalent, but same kind of boats. When it comes to the training world, I have a unique and elite skill set and knowledge in terms of what I can do for the human body, the way I view it. Not the best, but I have a really good understanding, more than most. In turn, I have an internship program in my company in Heroic and everything there, and turn through interns and train them. And with that, I have built and am working on getting accredited for basically a standardized certification program. Like, to become a coach, you have to do NASM, NSCA, ASC, American Strength and Conditioning, ASCA. There's different acronyms. Well, what makes them the accreditation board? And this is going somewhere. What makes them accredited? What makes them that high level? Well, realistically, the standardized metrics to be at that level, it's just, you need specific case studies. You need, a certain number of people certified. What is your testing system and things like that? Once you actually dive into it, my thought process for you is to get in front of the right eyes, you may need proof of concept. And with your credentials, like, I think back to my college, we had a class that taught the politics of South Park. That was it. It was slammed every year. And it was basically about the psychology behind South Park. And it was one class twice a week. One professor taught it, and it was like his brainchild. He just loved South Park, so he did this. So my thought process is for you to start with all your credentials and accolades. It will probably be pretty easy for you to get into a college. Run it at a community college or something for 2 or 3 years. Get it under your belt, what your testing looks like beyond school, right? And then you can turn around and say, well, I've taught it here at SMC for 3 years. This is the curriculum. This is what we're doing. You need this at a younger level. I don't know, just food for thought. Because I think about it's not a beautiful concept. Yeah, I support it. You have my vote.
Thank you. The problem is that the people that run those curriculum programs think they know better than everybody else.
Yeah.
They're not open, right? Their minds, they're just not open to that conversation, right? Because this is abstract. This is like, why would we spend money teaching them life skills? They should know this stuff. Do you understand? That's why I had to phrase it as uncommon sense. Everybody thinks they already know this. This is part of the reason why my school struggles is I can't get a lot of people to sign up because they already think they know everything. And if they actually talk to me, I will prove them definitively that that is not the case. But then, does anybody want to be challenged on your knowledge base? If you have a weak foundation, if your house is a weak foundation, the last thing you want to do is have somebody challenge it.
You get super vulnerable.
That's right, because there's no mental strength. So the very thing that I'm trying to teach them is the very thing they struggle with, which is why they won't take the school in the first place.
So my second question to you is, in going after 15, 16-year-olds, technically you need to go after the parents, right?
Correct.
Like, I think about my youth athletes, and I need to work on their nutrition. I could talk to them all day. Doesn't matter. I have to talk to mom and dad. I need mom and dad cooking good food, blah, 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 blah. How do you get to the parents? How do you bring them in?
Well, I mean, that's where I'm going to pick on myself. This is as grassroots as it gets. This is a concept that somebody brought up to me. They were like, well, don't worry, none of this is ever going to get fixed because nobody can teach common sense. And I was like, I don't know why. Why not? We learn everything else we're taught and learned. Why can't we teach common sense? Why can't somebody spend some time to cull this stuff down and make it? And so for what we're trying to do is I have to make one person at a time understand. It really is, we'll start at the grassroots level, which is why it's a website. They can sign up. We try and market to the parents like, hey, have your kids sign up for this course. It's just a couple of online classes, and they'll be brought aware of all these basic ideas that they should know about. Like, what is a FICO score? How does compound interest work? And then, like, my personal favorite from my whole school, or one of them at least, is, do you know what a credit card is? Like, do you know what it is?
Right.
What's a credit
card? You're asking me the definition of it? Well, it's basically a micro loan out from the bank, in a sense, with a super high interest rate.
It's a 30-day loan, right? It's just, instead of signing a stack of papers, I just drop the plastic and I take out a 30-day loan, right? But it's the same thing that the mafia used to apply. A credit card is identical to what the mafia used to apply to people with loan sharking. It's legalized loan sharking. It's the same thing. It's exactly the same concept. I give you money now. You get what you want. In 30 days, you owe me, or else I turn on the juice.
I feel like for you, if you work with like an ad creative, someone who's really, really spectacular and create just a bang up meta ad, it's gotta hit home. It's gotta be kind of touching home of like, hey, you might not know these skills. Your kids might not know
Yep.
these skills.
Yep.
Leading off with the survival of like, can you grow something? Most people are probably gonna go, I don't need that. I have a supermarket. But then you put in your earthquake story, COVID. What happens when all of the grocery stores are run out? And it can happen overnight. That elicits such an emotional response in me. Like, and I have survival skills. I did it all. Like, that's a whole different thing. It's still like I become like ears perked. So it's like running a good ad slowly but surely, and just keeping the community open. I think because the idea is there, your attitude towards it is there. I don't know. It's very curious.
Gosh, this is why when you offered, you were like, "Hey, can I put you on my podcast?" I'm just trying to start. And you even teased me about it. Like, there's so many concepts and ideas. How am I supposed to know all of them? I don't. Please no. I just tried to start. Somebody has to start somewhere with some ideas and then start talking about this. And we need to get it back out because nobody just throws the keys to a car when the kid turns 16 and says, "Good luck out there." Nobody does that. So why do we do it in their life? If we wouldn't do it with their driving, why would we do it with their life? But that's what we do.
So
Hey, I
how
don't
do
know.
you how do you talk about this? How do we hear about it? Like, do you do social media where you just record yourself chit chatting, or like how do you?
I'm in the process of working on that, right? I had to build out the courses so that there's at least a landing spot where they could hear me teaching it to a couple people, right? I get a couple people that are interested, and the feedback has been fantastic. But there's a world, as you know, like how many personal trainers, fitness people are there? How many voices,
Oh my God.
right? And then even like with using school, like we're trying here, it's niche, right? This is a very unique little thing, but people are just going to gloss over it. Like, I don't know what this is. I have common sense. I don't need this. Or what we've had some of the feedback is it feels like homework because you have to do real things and work on your real self. And a lot of that is mental. And why do people not like doing homework?
Because it that's where you're growing. Like it's changing the way you're thinking, I would say.
Yep. It exposes your weaknesses. It's exposing your weaknesses. And nobody likes that, right? Like if you're a personal trainer and first day you get in and you just embarrass them, they're never coming back.
Yeah. Done that.
Yeah, no, every
Done that.
personal trainer I know, right? You come in and you're like at this level and they're like way down here and you're like, well, I'll just shoot here. That seems fair. And you just kill them. You just annihilate them, right? I've done personal training for 30 years. I mostly focus on older folks because then they have to get over the mental part. I spend as much time on the mental part as I do on the physical part
Same.
in my school, right? Like I teach mentorship because I think one of the biggest fundamental problems in the world is therapy. Therapy is validation. Mentorship is, hey, this is what you need to go do.
Man, you hit the nail on the head. I have fundamental beliefs about whether or not therapy is appropriate. And therapy is validation. I never said that, but it really hits home. I could not agree more. The real question is,
We all need the mentorship though. That person ahead of us, it's like, hey, watch out for that hole. Hey, don't do that, right? And you're like, maybe you do it, maybe you don't, but it's nice to at least know that you could avoid some of it.
Mm-hmm.
But
You could have skipped a step or two.
Parents, both parents are working now, so they're not home. And when they do come home, they're worn out. So then they're not spending the time investing in the kids to get the common sense back. And so they go to school. And then what are they doing? They're just trying to survive, right? Because everybody's emotions are dialed to 11 now. This is my personal thing. It's really hard to teach and instruct in a world if everybody's expecting, and you even said so yourself, hey, Jason, if you could come up with something that's way over the top, maybe you'll get people's attention. So it's like, everybody's trying to do that. Everybody's trying to run at 11. But now
Hold on. I think you misunderstood my words. Not way over the top, really curated, really articulated, because I think the people have to elicit when they're watching and then granted, everyone goes through the same stages in buying, but when they see this, because you have to fight through that, oh, I have common sense. There needs to be something that shakes their core beyond just like, hey, you're obese, you want to lose weight. I can say that and maybe they'll sign up because, yeah, I'm fat. Okay. I need to lose weight. Great. Yours needs to be really deep down that fundamental belief system. You have to attack that. It doesn't have to be over the top crazy. It can just be you talking into the camera. But how you curate your message, I think, will be the real thing that shakes somebody, because there isn't a lot of bells and whistles to it. It's basic level stuff, but it's huge concepts. And I just wanted to clarify that because
No, that's totally fair. I guess, and you can see where my point is too, right? I'm trying to, like, everybody's like clickbait, like, look over here, right? Shock value, shock value. And so now we're all kind of immune to shock value. So it doesn't, because everything is, I'm laughing. I live in Ventura, California, and there was a rainstorm last week, and they had storm watch, and we had it's
flood
gonna be,
warning.
the end of the world, and it's like it rained like a quarter of an inch.
It was misting.
Yeah.
Do you have family or are you from elsewhere in the country?
No, I grew up in Van Nuys.
Do you have family elsewhere in the country?
I sort of now I have, but everybody's West Coast. I don't have any East Coast.
Okay. So most of my family is East Coast. And when things happen out here, the news shows it like the LA is burning down and there's like one little wildfire out in Pasadena. Or there was a 3.1 earthquake. We lost Malibu. It's done. So I get the phone calls of like, are you okay? Do you need anything? And I'm like, Mom, I love you. No, I'm fine. I didn't even wake up.
Right. But it's like the protests, they're taking over Los Angeles. It's like, no, there's two streets, that are having some issues, and
Way over there.
this is, yeah, and but this is our part of our problem is my message, because it's subtle and straightforward and challenges their core values, which is something I help them learn. That's one of the other things we do in the health is the mental side is they need to they need to identify what their core values are, right? And so you and I briefly before when we talked just about doing this, I mentioned some of them to you. And for the average person, they can't think of 5 core characteristics that make them who they are. They really struggle with it.
Can you run me through that exercise right now? I like to give a couple tangible things. Every time someone listens to our podcast, I want them to get coaching from you in that moment. So this was a really great drill that you did with me. So walk me through it.
Sure. So if we're going to build a foundation of self and whoever you're going to present to the world, then you need to identify first, what are the core characteristics that make me who I am? Good or bad, right? But if everything gets shaken in my life, what do I fall back on? So maybe I'm, like for my case, I'm very analytical. I have a science brain. That's just how I see the world. Sometimes it works for me. Sometimes it doesn't. A lot of people don't understand me because I can be very critical, but it's not because I'm emotionally attached to it, but because I'm just analytical. I look at things, right? And so most people have not actually accepted what their 5 core are, much less worked on it, right? And so the challenge is sit down with yourself, write down the 5 core characters, whatever word you want to use for it. I don't care what you call it, right? What are my 5? And then after you've written them, now go back and ask yourself the one I did with you. Okay, what are the negative things that you left out? What are the ones you're not so proud of? Because we all have those. That's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But again, if we're going to have a foundation and we're going to grow to build something, we got to be truthful for where we're good and where we're not. And so I always tell my 9-year-old daughter, own your successes, own your failures. And by doing that, that's this initial stuff, is spend the time to do that, develop it. And then part 2, and this is the part you and I didn't get a chance to talk about, is okay, if you feel solid what it is, take somebody that's really close to you in your life. Sit them down and ask them what your 5 core are. Don't tell them. Don't give them any heads up. So I need you to be 100% truthful.
I'm going to sit down with Mom and I'm going to have her analyze me, or I'm asking Mom.
You're going to ask your mom, what do you think my core 5 are?
Reflection. Okay.
Right. But you got to preface it with, I don't need you to be nice to me. I'm not asking you to pump my tires. I need you to just be brutally honest. What are my 5 core characters? And then you look at how many match between what you think your 5 are and what someone else does. And what that does is it represents 2 types of awareness. The first, internal self-awareness, mindfulness, the one you hear a million times in self-help books, right? That's you figuring out what your core five are. The one that everybody skips, and I spend a significant amount of time in my school on, is external self-awareness, which is what does the world see? And does it align with what you think you're putting out there? So it's not a judgment thing, it's just a sounding board for
Yeah.
the objective truth, right? And that's what I mean is everybody's too afraid that their five that they think that they've built their life on, nobody else is seeing that.
Do you ask the person who's special the 5 negatives as well?
Well, no, there shouldn't be 5 negatives. There should be 5 core, period.
No, but remember, you in the internal, you do positives. So what are your 5 strengths and 5 weaknesses? Do you ask the external strengths and weaknesses as well?
You're right. So I apologize. You take the 10 and you cull it down into a hierarchy. Which one dictates you the most? And it might be your negative, right? And you may not be proud of it, but your actions are what really represent what those characters are. So you need to take the 10 and then smash it into the 5 top. And you might realize that a lot of your negatives take precedent over your positives, or vice versa.
Got it.
Right?
Got it.
Because that's the challenge. The beauty is in the simplicity. That's what the whole common sense concept is. In complexity, we can all hide. But in simplicity, there's nowhere to hide. And so that's
really
what
awesome.
I want him to do is just find out who you are. No matter what that is. There's no wrong answers here. It's just like, just be true to who you are. So if you think that you're really kind and you go ask, let's say 3 friends, and none of them mention kind, you might be hurt. And then you might ask them like, hey, I really think I'm kind. And they're like, we've never seen you be kind. Hey, if you see yourself, that's great.
Man, that's powerful. Right.
And then suddenly you have a sounding board. You realize, wait, maybe I think I'm kind, but I don't actually do anything where anybody else sees it. So
maybe I'm not nice.
Am I?
Right.
Yeah, kind of. But see, now we're starting with truth. I personally am not a big fan of the my truth stuff. I think that's all mindfulness and no external self-awareness. And you need them both. They are a balance. I'm not saying change who you are to please everybody else. I'm saying that everybody else doesn't see kind, and it's not personal. They're not trying to attack you. They're just saying, we don't see it. So then that gives you the chance, the feedback to go start doing kind things.
I might be brave inside, but I never step into that situation. I'm right. So interesting. That's a great drill.
See? That's the mental strength. That's the mental strength. How do I challenge myself mentally to handle my emotions, to deal with real truth? If you can do that, Josh, then you can build like your stuff. All the personal stuff, the personal training, everything comes after they know who they are and why they're there. Because if you can identify why they're there, now you can work with something, right? Now.
So the very first question, it's literally height, weight, age, just so I know. And then it's why are we here? And I have a pretty extensive intake when I sit down with somebody, and we may or may not get to it. And some people will take me on this roller coaster, and the number of people who just want to be heard, that as we grow up, they're not congratulated. No one wins anything past high school, and that gets good jobs, attaboys. No one gets that. And the number of people who genuinely aren't listened to, truly heard, is mind-blowing. And it's like, yeah, I've got a spouse, I've got a significant other, blah, 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 but they never communicate with one another. Or the other person doesn't sit down and really, I'm here to appreciate you. Tell me about your day. Tell me where you're at. Tell me why you're here. Like, and then I sit down in the room and do that. It's like, bleh. So I really respect, why are we here, and getting that foundational sense. I really do. But that's what separates you. That's what makes you unique.
Now you can work with them, right? Yeah, but now you can work with them. You're like, okay, now I know what I'm working with. So the third part 3 of this is, if you don't know what your foundation is and you want to develop a relationship with somebody else and they don't know, and you don't know who you are, how are they supposed to know who you are?
Correct. I won't take somebody on as a coaching client if they can't get to me why. Go home, figure it out. Let's work through it another day, because you have to come to the table knowing where we're going.
Because if you have to be their motivation, then it's never going to work. You can give them energy, you can tell them what to do, but if you have to be the motivation for them for themselves to get fit, it's never going to stick.
Right.
And that's the mental health. See, that's what I mean. These are as ridiculously simple concepts as I could possibly make them. I am not trying to talk about a bunch of science and quote a bunch of papers. I'm going to go on Google Scholar and look at all this stuff I can look up for you. No, people need fundamental understanding of the basics that they can then build on. That's what the school is trying to do.
I love it. I absolutely love it. Seriously. Basic common sense. Amazing. I think, and maybe you what? Go ahead, repeat that.
It feels weird because I feel like I'm out on this little island by myself screaming, "Hey guys, I got this great idea."
I won't lie. I felt like that a year ago, 2 years ago, in terms of like where Vybrant is at now and when I was starting it, right? And we're specializing in sleep to start. I'm just finishing our product manufacturing portion of it. And the world is just starting to ask questions about recovery and sleep and natural supplementation and going against SRIs and, the trazodones, the antidepressants, the things like that, and starting to say, hey, we can do better here. And it's one of those things that I think at some level we have to stand up and believe that we are on the right path. Like, you're a smart man. I am as well. We know what we're talking about. We know it's out there. And I think about you, the common sense school, stuff like that. The number of parents that I sit with as they're going through school, I've interviewed teachers on here, that people are starting to turn around and question the education system, question the development of their youth, things like that. I think there's a message. I think there's an opportunity. You might be ahead of the game. You might be a year or two out, but it all kind of look like, if you step back looking big picture in terms of kind of the development of our society, I think you're spot on in this, which is why I was so excited to bring you on and just talk to you. It'll happen. You have to believe it, right? I was just talking to somebody, and the entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship is the blind faith that you can provide this service to somebody, that you can help someone. You were going to say, I cut you off.
No, I was going to say, I believe it to my core that I have a solution for people that's going to help a lot of people, right? And it doesn't have to be hard, right? The assumption is that it has to be this really hard thing. The hardest part is for you to just accept, have a little humility, right? Just accept, hey, so even if it was somebody that's in their 30s, there's no reason for you to not start now and build your foundation now. You don't have to be this other forever. Oh, well, the die is cast. That's it. I'm done. That's the beauty of where I want this to go. Now, obviously, I talked about the focus is, because we were talking about, is to get them at that young age so that they don't have to go mess up 6,400 times. They can only mess 3,200 times, because let's face it, we're all going to mess up. But the idea is, what if there was mentorship early on with a class that taught us how to survive in a community? And how much better would all of us as a community be if more people understood the road, right?
Well, you got me hooked.
I'm one at a time, Josh, one at a time.
It's okay. Have you seen, you've seen the, what is it? The one with the dancing, the video of the dancing where the one guy's dancing weird, and it's like the theory of like how we motivate and come together. It's kind of like this. You're the dancing guy in the center. How do we, as we wind down here, how do we find you? Where, like, talk about your school, socials. Tell me all about it. How do we find you?
It literally is, this is kind of the funny part about a URL. We are the Uncommon Sense School. If we have an entire website, you can go on, you can sign up for mentorship, you can sign up for, I even do some personal training if people want to come to my house in Ventura. That's very select. But I can do Zoom calls where I can talk to them. But more importantly, I built out classes. You can just sign up for the classes and you can go through them at whatever pace you want to, right? A substantial amount of, okay, my wife just told me there's 52 classes that I ended up making. Kind of the point. I'm still building a ton of material because I want to explore as many places as possible. Or somebody's like, yeah, I want to know about that. Not like I need AI to tell me what it is, but I just need to be aware of these certain things. Like, I use the phrase, I didn't know to know. You ever heard somebody say that? Like, you can't really hold them accountable for something. You're not even aware of it in the first place.
Yeah, ignorance is bliss.
That's what it is. But if you take my classes, they're not hard. They're 15 minutes a class, right? It's just watching a video of me talking about particular topics from, like you said, career and leadership, survival, health, diet, finances, all the basics that we need to function as an adult, without any kind of judgment, without any kind of heavy, I'm not going to go break It's not a college class. Not,
Hey, that's
so
great.
I actually wrote a book about leadership. Yeah, it's funny that I used the dancing guy in the book to explain something, and it's the title of that one is "Are You a Leader?" And it's the same principles. Is I'm not telling you what leadership is. I'm asking you to define what it is to yourself, right? So what do you think leadership is? And then is that what everybody else thinks it is?
Same conversation as we
Back to the
had before. Yep.
same
Well,
right?
beautiful.
Because your expectations of a leader are different. And then it's not fair to them if they don't know what everybody's expectations are. And so that's what's the beauty of my school. And then it's slowly expanding. I'm working on something for a young men's series, right? It's called Becoming an Honorable Man. And it has a lot to do with that most young men are being raised without a true father figure in their life, right? Through one form or another. And so we used to historically have this honor code, men, for thousands and thousands of years in pretty much every culture on the planet. And it kind of went away in the Industrial Revolution. And I think we need to kind of get back to that. And it's back to
Bring
the
it back.
same, what can I do of the men around me, right? So it's not a tell you what to do. It's a make you aware of what the expectations that generally men going out into the world, what does everybody expect of me? Right. So I'm trying to focus on that. And then the last one I'm doing and I kind of alluded to it, is a dreams class. Is how do I accomplish this incredibly hard thing, like a dream? You have to start with a foundation, right? And so, but I walk them through like day one all the way through the accomplishing of the dream, how to build a vision, how to build the goals, how to build all of that, much like you do when you do a personal training plan
Well,
for them, right?
that's
This is
brilliant.
where we start. This is where people need to do that because, and I don't want to take too much. I know we've been talking for quite a bit. The idea of a dream is we need this hard thing in our life, this thing that's way off in the distance that we want, but it's not easy to acquire. So that you have something to get up every day and work towards. And so that's why I agree with you wholeheartedly about entrepreneurship and all of that. We all need a dream, all right? And nobody ever helps anybody develop it.
And I feel truthfully, as I've talked to people over and over again, I believe most people lose the ability to dream. They have been beaten down by life. They have found negatives, hurt themselves. They chalk it up to, oh, I've got just family and kids now. I can't. Or it doesn't matter what the excuse is, but most people step back and go, well, I've chalked my life up. Here was where we're at. But it's like, dude, you're 40. You can achieve. You still have another season. Let's go. And sometimes, interestingly enough, what I've found is most people just need someone to believe in them, someone to say, you can do this. And from coaching, from training, it's the simplest thing, but man alive, it is earth shattering for someone. And I wear that hat for a lot of people, but I love this. So rewind, quick rattle off. Where do we find you? Because we got into a whole tangent and I got confused. CommonSenseSchool.com.
Okay.
Do we have socials up?
Yep. They're all under the same thing, Uncommon Sense School. They're on Instagram, they're on X, they're on YouTube, they're Facebook.
Perfect.
Any of the social medias we have.
And then lastly, all of your classes, are they built on school or is it through the website?
Both.
Okay. And for those listening, school.com, SKOOL, school.com. And that's where that's where we connected. And you'll be able to find that community as well for support from Coach Jason. Listen, I can't thank you enough for coming on. This has been absolutely brilliant. And I have a feeling we'll have you on again.
I'd be more than happy to. It's exciting, and I'd love to talk to as many people as I can about this idea that I really think it's what's missing. It's what's missing in a lot of people right now.
Couldn't agree more. It has some teeth.
Give it to them.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, Jason, you have a great one. Thank you so much again.
All righty. Take care, Joe.